Hello and welcome to Mary Makes. I'm Mary and today I'm going to be showing you how to use regular worsted weight acrylic yarn to sew parts like this foot and arm and tail onto your Chenille Plushies. Oh my gosh, I was like today years old when I learned that Chenille is pronounced chenille. So thank you for correcting me on that. Chenille Plushies. If you're new here, welcome. I make crochet videos and I also sell my crocheted items on my website. Okay, now on to the tutorial. So first, I'm going to start off with the rationale. Why do you want to use regular worsted weight yarn when you're sewing on your parts like this arm to your chenille plushies? And the reason is because this yarn is less susceptible to breaking. Like I can't break this yarn like without very strenuously trying to break it apart, whereas I can pretty easily snap my chenille yarn. Additionally, using this yarn is like a cost saving. This regular worsted weight yarn, this like is probably like Red Heart Super Saver or something. You know, this is like, you can get like, I want to say like 300 grams for $5 or less, whereas a ball of chenille is $10 for only 250 grams. So it gives you some cost savings and it's more durable. So the way you want to sew your parts onto your plushie is actually, I'm going to back up here. Before you start sewing, when you're making your part, make sure your last stitch is a slip stitch. So this is a mini dino arm that I've already made. I finished it. It was only 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, and I'm on my, so I finished all my stitches, but I'm just going to do a slip stitch, which is where I insert my hook, drop a loop, and pull it completely through just to finish off the piece. And then I personally like to tug my loop so that the slip stitch is a little tighter. I'm going to cut off my chenille here, pull my loop just through like that. So that forms a knot. So now I have like an arm with an ending to it. So we want to do that slip stitch to make it easier for us to sew. So now that I've done that slip stitch, I can easily see where my 5 stitches are to sew. As for the actual sewing, just take your regular yarn and notice that I'm using a similar color to the chenille that I'm working with. This I think just helps it blend in case it were to poke out, but in most cases it's gonna be like the chenille or fluffy yarn, whatever you choose, is gonna be so fluffy that you're not even gonna notice that it's it's there. You're not even going to notice that it's there. So what I like to do is I like to start by identifying the holes that I want to sew into. So I have 5 stitches here. I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, kind of in like a trapezoid shape. I'm just going to come in. Actually, I'm going to go down here a little lower. There we go. I'm just going to come in, leave myself a bit of a tail. Then I'm just going to start grabbing, and I grab my stitches from the inside going out. So instead of going from this direction, the outside, to the inside of the arm, I'm going this way. And once I grab one stitch, I'm going to go back into my plushie body and move to another hole. I go into the same hole that I was just in, grab my next stitch, go into the hole where my yarn is coming out. Wow, words. Come out a different hole, grab my stitch again, and then just continue that all the way around. Once you get to the end here where you've grabbed your last stitch and moved back there, you can tug on this yarn just to like tighten it. And once you tighten it, you're not going to see this yarn at all. So I'm just going to tuck this in really quickly here. take my yarn ends. I just tie a knot here, and even this knot like disappears into the plushie just like that. And then I just thread the yarn through the plushie, and then I'll just tuck these tails in so that you don't see them. And voila, that's how I sew an arm onto a plushie. I'm going to show you a leg because I feel like with stuffing, it's a little bit more trickier. So with your leg, what I've done the same thing here. I crocheted around, and there's my slip stitch to end the leg. I'm going to give myself a bit more room with my regular yarn here, and I am going to start with this leg. Ooh, that might be hard to see with the camera, or maybe it's better. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing where I just start threading through the body where I want the leg to be, and going through the stitches, grabbing my piece, my foot's stitches. And then what I'm gonna do is, before I'm gonna sew most of this. I'm gonna sew all the way around to about here and give myself a little pocket left so that I can stuff the foot. So I'll do that, and I'll see you back here. Okay, so what I've done is I've sewed the foot on around most of the circumference, and I've left this part here, the last like 2 or 3 stitches, undone, because now it's time to take my stuffing and fill up my little foot here. When you're stuffing, make sure you keep these ends like out, just so you don't accidentally tuck your ends in when you're pushing the stuffing in there. And I also wouldn't recommend overstuffing your chenille plushies, because the chenille can stretch and show, like, you can then see the stuffing a little bit. So I don't go too much. This is looking pretty good to me. This is about what I normally stuff my foot with. And then to close it off, I do the same thing. I'm going into the stitch, back into the body, out another stitch, back into the foot, back into the body, all the way until I meet the other yarn end. Then when I get here, I kind of pull on both ends, kind of like a drawstring, like that. And then you'll see here, like, you can see the plushie, like, you can see where the yarn is pulling. That's good. That means you haven't like split your yarn or done any, made any accidental knots. At this point, what I do is I actually thread one of these yarn ends through another stitch, and then I make it come out the same stitch as that hole, or as the other yarn end. So do you see how both of my yarn ends are now coming out of the same hole? This way, when I tie a knot, the knot is inside the plushie as opposed to outside the plushie. I feel like with the arms, I don't have to be as intentional about getting the knot or the yarn ends coming out of the same hole, because it just like happens. Whereas with the foot, sometimes I end up in a different spot. But, you know, there's no like right or wrong answer when it comes to sewing, just as long as you're consistent. And then here I'm just tucking the tail end back in and then tucking in the yarn ends. So ta-da! That is how I use regular worsted weight yarn to sew chenille parts onto plushies. So I did finish up this dino. I just sewed on the tail, the other foot, and the other arm, and here's how it looks. I do have a full tutorial on my channel breaking down how to crochet all the parts. It doesn't matter what yarn or crochet hook you use with the pattern, as long as your stitches are close enough together that stuffing doesn't fall apart. So in that video, I am using regular yarn to crochet a mini dino, but just know that you can also use jumbo chenille yarn as well. So that's all I have for you today. I hope this helped, seeing how I use regular worsted weight yarn to sew parts onto my chenille plushies. And if you enjoyed this, I hope you like and subscribe for more crochet content. Thank you so much. Bye.